Hey guys, it's Heather here, and I have a problem happening right on my rose arbor. Now, I'm beginning to think that maybe I wasn't destined to grow David Austin roses successfully. And what I have growing on this arbor is one called James Galway. And I had the pleasure of consulting with Michael Marriott of David Austin Roses before he left David Austin to really pick his brain about what he thought would be great for a cold climate gardener in the United States with a north-facing exposure. So this is a very cold spot of my garden, and if you look at the David Austin catalogs, it'll list for you what things will do well in shadier environments, colder climates, what are good climbers. So Michael suggested James Galway. So I put a James Galway. They were bare root roses on each side of this arbor, and so this would be the third year on the arbor. Last year, they were beautiful, and this whole top was covered in fresh buds, and it was just, I was thinking, oh, it's going to be gorgeous. And then thrips hit. And if you're not familiar with thrips, thrips are nasty little needle-looking tiny insects that get into your rose buds, and then they chew on it from the inside out, and then the rosebud never fully opens completely, and when it does partially open, the ends of it, they just look tattered. They look like they're kind of toasted a little bit. They look terrible. It doesn't look anything like the James Galway rose I was expecting it to look like. So last year was thrips. This year, I have a completely different problem, and one that I noticed, and I think it's completely gardener error. And it has everything to do with clean pruners. And in total honesty here, I am not exactly the best person for cleaning my pruners. And I clean when I'm moving from plant to plant. I'm very careful about that. But when it comes to the problem that I just noticed the other day on my James Galways, it has everything to do with cleaning your pruners between every single cut you make on your roses. So I don't do that. I don't clean and disinfect my pruners between every cut. I mean, I'm really bad about that. I do, like I said, clean between plants, so I'm very cautious about that, but I didn't really put much thought into it until I discovered this problem. I have rose canker. I've never had rose canker before on any of my roses, and the key to diagnosing this and nipping it in the bud before it gets worse, especially on grafted roses. So I prefer own root roses. They're hardier in my garden. I have the most problem with grafted roses, and grafted roses are those that have a different rootstock. On the bottom, they're hardier rootstock on the bottom. That's what's growing in the ground, and then they graft on the desired rose on the top of that. And then that bud union where those two pieces intersect, that's your weak part in your rose. So if rose canker makes its way down to the graft union, it could be curtains for my roses. So I'm going to show you what rose canker looks like, and then discuss how we fix it and how we prune appropriately so that we hopefully get rid of the problem, and maybe I can salvage some of this. So let me show you up close. So this is looking from my neighbor's yard into my garden, and my first sign of trouble was when these canes that I tied in, I pruned this back about 6 weeks ago. And right after I pruned, we had a lot of rain, it got cold, and then more rain. So I think it was a prime situation for fungal issues. So rose canker is caused by fungus. So what happened was I happened to look out here and check these guys, and I had all of these canes that I tied in to my arbor, all of this dying back. And I thought, all right, let me look deeper on this. So I've got a lot of nice, healthy, bushy growth on both sides. And this one, you can see it. And you can see all this in here, and you can see the fruiting body on these fungus here in the center. And it's traveling all the way up, and you can see it in here. And then there's this dieback in here. So what I want to avoid, and you can see it on this cane back here as well. So let me come around and see all this happening. I mean, it's completely dying out, and this cane has had it. So this is coming out. You can see all the dead moving up here. So I will be cutting this out and getting rid of it, and I'll be using very clean pruners between each cut. So you can see this one goes quite deep, and that's all these little things here are the fruiting bodies, I believe. So this is not good. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean these pruners, and I'm going to clean the pruner between every single cut that I make so that I'm not transmitting it to other parts of the rose or to the rows across the arbor. So The best thing to use is 70% isopropyl rubbing alcohol. That is the best thing for killing anything that could be on these pruners. I like to use Clorox bleach wipes just because they're easier to work with. So I'll go in and polish these things up with a bleach wipe, and then I'm going to make my first cut. And what I'm going to do is identify where the cankers are on the rose cane, and I'm going to cut about 2 to 3 inches below that canker and about no more than a quarter inch above a bud, because leaving too much of growth above that bud can, it doesn't callus over as quickly, and you want it to callus as quickly as possible so it doesn't become a vector for more issues in the future. So, and we've got plenty more rain coming, and those wet conditions and humidity can really wreak havoc on these roses. So, like I said, I'm going to come in about 2 to 3 inches below. So the lowest canker on this one is, let's see, can you see that? Here, let's move this guy out of the way. And you might want to wear some rose gloves. My favorite rose gloves for when I'm pruning are ones from Womanswork company, and they are the Gauntlet gloves, and I don't need them right now because this is not really thorny just yet. It's not massive, but the Gauntlet gloves will cover you up to here so you're not getting all scratched up. But I am going to identify my lowest canker, and it looks like it's this one here. So I'm going to come about 2 inches below it and about a quarter inch above a bud here. So I'm going to be just above here, and I'm going to cut it on an angle using extremely sharp pruners. So you want to make sure your pruners are sharpened. I have an entire video on sharpening your pruners. These are Falco number 2s. Yeah, these are my Falco number 2s, my most used pruners. So I've cleaned these up really well, gotten in all the nooks and crannies. I'm going to go in and make my first cut. And I forgot to hit play on that first cut I'm making. So I'm going to go in on this one and identify my canker, and I'm going to cut about a quarter inch above a fresh or a healthy leaf bud. So I want to make sure I'm coming about 3 inches below it. Let me move this around just ever so slightly. So you can kind of see it in here. So that looks like the lowest, oh no, it's not. It's not. So I am going to come out and cut this out entirely. And I'm going to clean these guys really good, disinfect them, and chop off that larger branch. It's hard to get in there too, so let me come around this way. I don't want to damage other parts of the rose, so it'll be a little tricky. And it's a good idea too with the fruiting spores on those cankers. If you get it on your hands, you want to disinfect your hands too, because you want to eliminate any possibility that you're going to be transmitting this stuff from your hands, from your tools, onto other plants. So I'm going to go through and really start. I mean, I'm really happy with the lower growth. I mean, everything looks healthy here. It's just those canes that I pruned a few weeks ago, those are the ones that are affected. So I'm going to accept full responsibility for this and clean it up, and hopefully I'll get some roses this year. I'm also going to have to be very vigilant for the thrips too. So I don't treat, speaking of thrips, I don't treat with any insecticides, because I think a lot of people think that systemic insecticides are specific to a specific pest. They're not. So, and because I don't want to hurt any of the pollinators that may land on these roses or any of my flowers, anything that lands on something that you've treated with a systemic insecticide is going to die from it. So I prefer to handle the thrip issue by just being very vigilant and cutting off any buds that show signs of thrips. They're difficult to manage, but hopefully being more vigilant this year will solve that problem. And being hyper-focused on cleaning my tools between each cut too will make my roses much healthier and make me much happier. And as far as what to do with the canes after you've cut them off, you don't want to compost them. You want to just throw them in the garbage, get rid of them. You don't want that to spread in your compost and then have that, when you go to put your compost down, transmit those spores into other plants. So just burn it, throw it away, get rid of it, just don't compost it. So you can see all the dying growth on this cane, and you can see the cankers along the stem here. And it's only on the branches, it's only on the canes that I actually trimmed this past winter. So it had to be, it's my error. And it's very possible that with the rain and the wind and all that, spores blew in, but it's also possible that it's from me too. So it could have been, or it could have been a combination of the two, pruning at that time and then having the open wounds on those canes, and then with the rain and the wind and everything could have just blown into those open wounds before they had time to callus over, and it just took a toll. So, but the rest of the growth looks really good. The really important thing is to make sure that you're being very vigilant. You're having, looking at your roses. Hopefully I've nipped this in the bud, we'll see, but I want to show you something else that's going on. On another David Austin rose, and it's not unusual, especially in climates in areas where you have a high pH in your soil. So your soil is very alkaline, and I'll show you what that looks like. But first I'm going to tie in these canes, and the ties I like to use are sponge ties. And I'm forgetting the name of them. I'll link to those on the bottom, but they've got a really nice soft coating. They're not wire coated, or they're not wires, so they're not going to damage the canes, and they tend to work really well. I use them over many seasons too. And these are the Womanswork gloves I was telling you about, the Gauntlet gloves. And I'm just going to put these on to pick up all these canes. All right, let me show you that other rose. So my next problem with my roses, this is another David Austin rose. It's another grafted rose. This is Gertrude Jekyll. It's a climbing rose, and it's on this trellis that I have running along my front walk. And I noticed a few weeks ago that it had chlorosis. And what chlorosis is, and it's pretty typical in high pH soil, which is what I have here. But you can see the difference. This is a chlorotic leaf, and this is what the leaf should look like. So quite a difference. And what this means, and this is a telltale sign, when you've got the yellowing leaf and the green veins, your plant is chlorotic. So what that means is that high pH soil, those nutrients that are in the soil are all bound up. So the plant, they're insoluble nutrients. So the plant roots cannot access those nutrients. So you need something that kind of loosens those things up, frees up those nutrients. And I use iron chelate. It's an organic product. This is from a spoma. Iron chelate, I worked that into the soil. I did this last week. We've had a really nice amount of rain, and this whole stem here was pretty chlorotic. So I think I nipped this one in the bud, and I noticed that when I was filming my other video, it was showing you the rose canker. Those climbing roses over there as well have some chlorosis, so I'm going to treat those two with some iron chelate. So what happens is it typically starts from the outermost, the youngest leaves. So the lower part of the plant will be nice and green, and then your new leaf buds will start looking chlorotic. So, and when this happens and it starts to overcome the entire shrub or plant, it can be a real problem because the leaves can scorch. It really stresses the plant. The plant can die. So you want to make sure when you're seeing this, and it may not happen to the entire shrub, it might just happen to a certain branch, a certain limb, but it's definitely your telltale sign that you've got some chlorosis issues. And then the most common cause is high pH. Other things could be disturbance with the roots. Maybe the plant was damaged when you're doing some lawn work. Any of those things can cause some issues with some foliar issues as well. But when you're seeing this and you've got high pH, it's oftentimes it's iron deficient, and iron is what makes your plants green up. It makes the plants able to absorb those nutrients from the soil, make food, photosynthesize, make the chlorosis, make their food so that they can get big and beautiful. And and I definitely think this solved the problem. I applied this about a week ago, I think, and it's already starting to lose that veining and become more green overall. It's really easy to apply. You just want to follow the package instructions, and it's 1 to 2 cups per plant on established plants. So you want to do it around the drip line. What the drip line is the outermost area where the rain would hit the leaves and drop down. That is your drip line. And it's kind of hard to figure that out, what that might be on a climbing rose. So I'm just gonna kind of do it throughout the bed. I'm not gonna do it again right now. I'm gonna go do that on the other rows on the trellises. But if you're seeing this on your roses or any of your other plants and you have a high pH, and the only way to know if you have a high pH is to get a soil test. So definitely get a soil test so you know what your pH levels are at. And really simple thing to do too. You can submit it to, you can call your local extension office and find out, get a referral to a soil testing site. There's a really good soil testing company or site that I use out in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is where I send my soil tests to. And I will link to that as well, so you can contact them. They've got a really nice, easy to follow submission process and online. So it really walks you through it. It's really easy to do. So let me show you the newest rose I bought. And I'm really focusing on own root roses now because their longevity is so much better in the garden. They tend to be hardier, tougher plants. So I got a new one. I'm gonna take you to the side yard garden real quick and show you what that one looks like. There's nothing in flower yet, but I'll show you the tag and you can see what I've got. I have high hopes for this one. All right, so here's my side yard garden, and this is my newest rose here. Just planted this the other day. This is Sweet Fragrance Easy Elegance rose, and it's an own root rose. So this is what the flowers, the buds are gonna look like. It's covered in healthy buds. Look at the foliage. Isn't that beautiful, you guys? So gorgeous. So it's got a coral colored flower on it, own root, and let's see, how big is this gonna get? This is 2 to 4 feet high, 2 to 3 feet wide, full sun, of course. Repeats throughout the season, own root, buds of coral and orange with deep yellow base swirl open to fragrant apricot blossoms that mature to salmon pink, adding interest with the range of colors. Long stems are perfect for cutting, grown on its own root, not grafted. So isn't that gorgeous? And you gotta have, it's disease resistant, gotta have a fragrant rose too. So if it's not fragrant, I don't want it. So we're gonna see how this does, but so far so good. The other issue that my roses often get is rose sawfly. They're little green caterpillars that munch the leaves and make them look translucent, like they just eat away all the leaves and it leaves this webby looking look to it. That's really common. I just pick those off and smush them. But the only rose that they don't affect is the rugosas, and I think that has everything to do with the fact that the rugosa rose is a very rough textured rose. It's got the serrated edge, it's a thicker leaf. So it could be for that reason that they're not interested in that. But sometimes I ask myself, with all these issues that roses have, why do I grow them? And the simple answer is, I love them. They're absolutely gorgeous, and I'm determined to, figure this out and hopefully have some blooming roses, some healthy roses eventually. But that's the best way to learn too. Everything, all the challenges that arise in the garden, you learn something from it, figure it out, and you decide, is it worth it? So. And I'm not so sure that after this, if it continues to be a problem in my garden with the David Austins, as much as I love them, maybe I'm just not meant to have them. So maybe the Easy Elegance roses are going to be the way to go. We'll see. So I hope that if you run into any of these issues, this helps you figure out how to solve them. And I should have mentioned too that some people treat their rose canker issues with fungicide, and from my research, it can be very difficult to pinpoint what fungus is causing the canker. There are several different types of funguses that cause the cankers. So you really need the specific fungicide for the canker that you have. So I'm just going to use Vigilance and pruning properly, cleaning my pruners between every single cut on the roses, and see what happens. So maybe they'll stay, maybe they'll be gone, and I'll have to think of a replacement. But until then, I'm going to keep an eye on them and hope for the best. So, all right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, thumbs up would be great. Subscribe would be awesome. I'd love to have you along for the ride. And thanks for watching. Have a good day.